Welcome back to the channel. I'm Melissa and this is Jessica. And today we are going to talk about how to get over analysis paralysis and stop putting things off until tomorrow. I feel like we need this too. Like everyone needs this message because maybe it's not applicable to you in terms of like nutrition or fitness, but I guarantee there is one thing in your life where you're like, ugh, this is really hitting home. Let's say you're someone who you are wanting to join a gym, go to a spin class, or start a new diet program, or
create a new healthy habit, right? Like
create something new.
10K steps a day.
Yeah. You are saying you want to start something, and then you keep going to do it, and then you're like, I'll just do it tomorrow. Like whatever. You kind of almost like freeze, and then you're like, I'll just do it tomorrow. You know, one of those things that I do that with is meditation.
Me too.
I love meditating. I feel so much better when I do it, but every day I'm like,
me too. I'll do it later. I'll do it tomorrow.
I literally, because I haven't done it because like Michelle's been here, and I literally I was out for my walk this morning, and I was like, it like hit me, and I'm like, I got so much anxiety. I'm like, oh god, I have to meditate, but like I really want to do it, but I also feel like really anxious to like sit down and just do it.
I know.
I wonder why.
Yeah,
it's so weird.
We'll talk about it.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
If you're someone that suffers from analysis paralysis, we're going to talk about ways that you can start to break that. But I think the first thing that we should do is talk about what analysis paralysis might look like, or what it might feel like, or how it might show up in your life. One of the first biggest things, especially in my life, is overthinking. Like overthinking all the details for everything. If I'm like, well, I really want to start Pilates, but then like, which Pilates studio am I going to go to? I need to like look up all the reviews.
Me too.
I didn't like what that teacher said, and that one review stood out to me.
I literally just did this like for like 2 weeks straight. I've been researching Pilates studios in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Instead of just pulling the trigger, I'm like literally overthinking everything. And how far is it away from where I am? And what time are the classes? And am I really going to be a show? Like all of the things, to the point where it took me a good 2 weeks to actually book a class when I was like, I really just want to do this. And I wish I didn't wait that long. So I think overthinking is a really big one.
Another one is like you're focused on almost worst case scenario. It's like, well, what if I go to this class and I completely embarrass myself? Or, in your case, like when you had to poop, like when you first got to your Pilates class, it's like, well, like what happens if like I have to go to the bathroom when it's just, your brain starts to almost like find all of these reasons like why this is not a good idea. Don't do it. And so you start to go down this rabbit hole of like, first of all, you overthink, and then it's like worst case scenario.
And then I think the next thing is like you start to feel overwhelmed. When I was like, well, going with the Pilates example, I'm like, well, I don't have socks, and I'm gonna have to like figure out like what socks, and then I don't know, I'm gonna have to figure out like a whole new schedule to get up in the morning, and then what time I'm gonna eat breakfast, and I'm gonna have to adjust my morning meetings, and it just gave me this whole big feeling of like overwhelm of like, there's so much that I have to get done. Adding a whole nother thing into the mix, maybe that's just gonna like set me over the edge.
And then I feel like because of all of that, then you start to almost tell yourself you don't even know where to start. And it's just like you just start to freeze. Like it's kind of like a slow, like you're like freezing in real time, and then you start to be like, well, I can't start. I don't know where to start. I can't do this. Like maybe this isn't for me. And then just kind of it's like this vicious cycle.
Yeah, exactly. It can be any of those things separately, or it can be everything all at once. Like what you said, it's just like this paralysis where you don't take action even though you want to take action. It's really funny you said that about the Pilates thing, because I literally have sat on that for 2 weeks before I actually took action, and I was really bummed at myself.
I still haven't gone yet. I said I wanted to start doing Pilates months ago, and I finally got around to starting to like do research on it and like find like a place. Still haven't been able to pull the trigger, and it is truly because I have been like way overthinking it, and I am thinking worst case scenario, like what if the instructor laughs at me? Like, what if I'm not good at it? I'm not flexible. What if I just can't do it? Like, my core is not
so weak.
It's so weak.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just kept putting it off. And my excuse was, well, I haven't done enough research.
Yeah, exactly. And it just like starts this vicious cycle.
Because of that, I was in the shower the other morning, and I started to be like, why can't you ever just like follow through with something you say you're gonna do? Like even like Jess went and did Pilates and like she thought of it 3 weeks ago, and you've been saying it for months. Why can't you do this? And it starts to be this negative self-talk dialogue that you have going on in your head of you're just lazy, or you just can't make time for anything, you can't get up earlier from bed, and it really becomes this cloud over you of just negativity of like it's you, like you're the problem and something's wrong with you, like you're just a lazy person that you can't go do this thing that you said you were gonna do.
And I think that that's something that is so so familiar to a lot of us, especially when we're starting new diet programs or new workout regimens or new exercise, whatever, new healthy habits. But I think like with dieting specifically, if you think about how many diets that you failed in the past, and you're like, you get really geared up to like try this new one, and then you fail at that too, and you're just like, oh, like you piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like you start to down talk yourself to the point where it impacts what you believe about yourself. And that's what's probably the most damaging out of all of this. And we'll talk about like why this all happens, but what's probably most damaging is the labels that you start to associate with yourself because of your failure to take action.
It's important to understand why analysis paralysis happens. Like if you're someone who you feel like you can just like never make a decision, like you overthink anything, it's really because your brain is protecting you. Even if starting a new diet program, even if like going out for steps, like joining a gym, even if that is something that's good for you, like your brain really doesn't care that it's good for you. Your brain cares about keeping you comfortable and in familiar patterns, and that is an unfamiliar thing for you. And so it almost puts you into like this fight or flight response of, well, I don't know this is the unknown, and so it's bad. Right? It creates a stress response.
And I want you to think about it, like we talk about this all the time, but again, we have to kind of rewind back to caveman days, because the way that our brains are hardwired has not really changed from those thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. Our brain very much acts the same way that it did back when we were cavemen and running around in loincloths. And we have to remember that at that point in history, most of what we could suffer, or most of what our brains perceived as a threat, were physical threats. You could run out of food and die. You could freeze to death and starve during the winter. You could run out of water and you could become so dehydrated that you die. You could get your head bit off by a saber-toothed tiger. So your brain was always scanning and looking for all of those like physical threats. And then your body was reacting accordingly to help reroute energy to wherever it needed to go to make sure that you stayed safe, because that's your body's sole purpose, is to survive and thrive and keep you alive. So scan for threats and make sure that we do whatever we can to keep you safe. That's your brain's job. Now we fast forward to today's day and age, and for most of us, we don't have constant physical threat to our survival. But what we do have is the mental and emotional threat. That's what's gonna be painful, and that's like what we're perceiving as, well, that's gonna be the part that could hurt me. Looking like an idiot, sounding stupid, being rejected, feeling like you have no idea what you're doing. Those are all like the mental and emotional things now that, unlike what your brain used to scan for in terms of the physical things, this is where like your focus and attention has been redirected. And so what your brain wants to do is look for all of those mental and emotional areas where you could potentially be uncomfortable, or you could be threatened. And it tries to find evidence to give you all the reasons why you should not put yourself in situations where you might experience any of that, because it's safer and it's more comfortable to stay exactly where you are. But that's also what keeps you stuck.
If you're someone who's like, well, I'm gonna join the gym and I'm gonna start a diet and I'm gonna go for walks and I'm gonna drink my water, like those are all good things, but all your brain hears is everything in my life is gonna change all at once. And it's not predictable because you've never done that before. Like you might have, you know, worked out here and there before, you might have like done like diets before, but you haven't tried to make this whole like lifestyle change where like you're trying to, you know, do all these things to be a better person. To your brain and to like your body, really, it's just kind of like, this is so unpredictable. We don't know what's gonna happen.
And that's a threat.
And it's a threat.
Exactly, and that makes sense. So imagine like, again, back in caveman days, you decide to take another route home to your cave. On that route home, your brain is gonna be scanning, looking for the forest, looking for all of the animals and where could they be and is anyone gonna attack me? Now, again, 2023, instead of looking for all of the things that can attack me from a physical standpoint, we're looking at all of the things that might be a threat, right? That no predictability, 100% is a place where all the mental and emotional threats gonna come from. So we're constantly scanning. And there are 4 ways that our bodies can respond to this. It's either fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Basically, in all of those responses, it kind of puts you in this like immobilized state where you don't feel like you really have control over what you're gonna do next.
I think truly the only way to get out of this is you really just have to start taking action. This has been something that I've learned, and like clearly I haven't done it because of the whole Pilates thing, but I really do try to just, rip the Band-Aid off and just do something. And I feel like especially with, a health journey, so many people are trying to, you really do try to do everything at once, and that usually ends up with failure because it's too much. A way to overcome this, a way to not like just sit there and overthink things and think of worst case scenario is just like start doing small things. Almost like set yourself a target for like 30 days. For 30 days straight, I'm going to drink a glass of water like before I get out of bed, right? Like you're gonna have a glass of water by your bed, and for 30 days you're gonna just like get up and like drink that water. And then maybe, for like the next 30 days it's gonna be I'm gonna do the water, and then I'm gonna go for a 10-minute walk in the morning before I have my coffee. And you start to keep these promises to yourself. When you do what you say you're gonna do, when you keep promises that you make to yourself, that's how you start to build self-confidence. And that's how you start to then reroute the wires in your brain. You're sending signals to your brain saying, okay, this feels safe, this is predictable. Now I know this is like comfortable and familiar, and I know that we drink water and we go for walks, and then maybe you add in like 2 workouts at the gym, and okay, this feels safe.
Right.
And like now we're eating healthy, and it starts to evolve into this just becomes your lifestyle, and you no longer have to overthink any of the actions that you're doing because you're just doing. It's not like you have to almost prepare and like get a bunch of motivation to start doing something. It's like you're just taking small actions, doing what you say you're gonna do, and because of that, your brain is like, okay, like this feels good.
Yeah, it's really just about, transitioning from thinking that you have to overhaul everything all at once, which puts your brain in that triggered state of everything's unpredictable, to a place where, like Melissa said, it's 1 or 2 small things that you commit to doing that eventually come habitual and routine and predictable. And in that way, you feel safe, you're comfortable, and you can just move on.